hola, guten tag, buongiorno, bonjour, and hello, my dears. How are we doing on this fine day? I say fine day, it's absolutely pissing it down. Well, you asked for it. Well, you didn't. The second episode, 'tis this, of my little ditty, my solo podcast. The first episode I haven't released yet. You poor things, I know. But I'm planning to do that very soon, and this should follow soon after. I have given, in the first episode, I've had a few people say they really didn't like the accent I was doing. I only did it because, you know, I started it and it fit. And it was in homage to that YouTuber I mentioned, if you listen all the way through it. But okay, I've heard the feedback. I won't do the accent anymore, but it might creep in, so you'll have to fucking deal with it, I'm afraid. Anyway, what I really want to talk about, the format of this kind of series thingamabobbins, is because I've realised listening to everything nowadays, everything's supposed to be fun, like a film, a game, a video online. Everything is just jam-packed of political issues and politics shoved down your throat. And it does get fucking tiring. I mean, all politics should be left to its sort of own corner. When it starts leaking into everything, which it is doing, it's so dull, so boring. It's just aggravating. There's no respite for it. You go to work or whatever, college, university, and you deal with everything, don't you? You deal with all the work that you have to do, political news. It's all the stresses of the day. And you come home, cup of tea, put my feet up and watch a lovely little video. That'll be lovely, won't it? And you get home and you watch something like, for example, YouTube Rewind. It should be something to enjoy all the fun things that have been over the year. All the interesting videos, all the interesting memes, whatever. Just, oh god, I fucking remember that. And then fucking, of course, politics shoved right in there. Let's take a moment to appreciate. As soon as that's said, you're like, oh god, this is going to make you feel like shit, isn't it? Because that's the idea for these type of things. Makes you feel as shit as you can, so you do something about it. And I think that's nonsense. People fucking need respite. I know I bloody do. My mind's fit to bloody bursting. You just need a bit of respite where you can go numb. You just listen to any old shit, and there's no consequence, no thing. That's what I kind of want. I want to do that for you. Because I love you so much. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a sip of my tea. But yeah, that's another thing. It's gonna be a thing. I'm gonna drink every episode. It has to be. So excuse me. It's like almost ASMR-ish, isn't it? I kind of want to do that. An ASMR video. I went to National Trust the other day, and I bought honeycomb, like the thing of honeycomb. I don't know what it is called. Not honeycomb. It's, well, just a solid sheet of honeycomb, like straight from the beehive, just scraped off, stuck in a little box. Here you go, you can have it. And I see so many ASMR people just and eating it. Because, oh god, it does not make a lovely sound. Loads of people hate ASMR, and they think I'm a freak because I live for it. Absolutely love it. The noises, like sort of little crunch, a little bite, like sort of of someone eating. Loads of people hate that, and I can't understand why. It makes me hungry. It's I think it started from that scene off Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you've watched Lord of the Rings. You should have. It's amazing. What is it? When the steward, Denethor is the name, he's telling the Hobbit, right, sing for me, I'm bored shitless, and he's eating. He's got a bit of chicken. He bites tomato and it pops. Everyone's like, but it's meant to have that effect, I think. Like, oh god, this is absolutely disgusting. Oh, and I'm just like, oh god, I could do with a bit of chicken now. Oh, nice tomato to go along with. Oh, he's got a bit of bread. Oh, it sounds lovely. But those noises I've always loved it. And I can't be alone because there are ASMR people who do it. I forget her name. There's this woman who solely does it. She goes, hi guys, I'm gonna eat some like raw honeycomb, and then she like eats it. And you can hear everything, every smack of the lips, every twirl of the tongue, and gives me shivers and makes me hungry. Anyway, so yes, I want this to be a bit of a respite, a little break from the political world. I do enough of the political talk on my other podcast. Go and check it out. Shameless plug. Whatever. Hashtag. Whatever the kids say nowadays. I don't care. Anyway. So, the other day, I was watching... Well, I was flicking over. Caught... Graham Norton. I forgot his name then. Graham Norton and Stephen Fry was on it promoting his new book. I didn't know he was releasing a new book. On Greek... I think it's Greek mythology. This time it's heroes, I think. Like the heroes, like Perseus and all that. Possibly Hercules is in there. I don't know. What he was talking about, Greek mythology. I thought, oh, that sounds lovely. I'd like to give it a read, though, because I have always been fascinated with, like, mythology, myths. That's pretty much mythology. I've, like, all of them. Egyptian, Norse, Celtic, Greek, Roman. Actually, less Roman. I don't know why. I always found it less interesting. Like the gods of Rome, because they're just... I think it's because they're just named after planets. Or vice versa. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that's just kind of going into the thing. But it's not the case at all. There's like different stories, Roman things. I think I'll have a look at it. Maybe one day, but no. Definitely Greek, Norse, Egyptian... all the mythologies, all the stories, the gods, titans, the giant. Oh, tickles my pickle. So, I would like to share with you a bit of my knowledge and just talk about some different stories because I find them fascinating. I do hope you do too. So, and people tend to know a little bit about it, don't they? Mostly off like Disney films. Like Hercules, Zeus. Although, I was talking to someone, I was so surprised. It was like, it was a gentleman I was talking to, and he had no idea who any of these people were. I had to drag Hercules out to him. Of course you know Hercules. Hercules! No, who the fucking hell's Hercules? Hercules! You fucking know Hercules? Everyone knows Hercules! Can't say I have. And he wasn't like... It wasn't a very old gentleman who would have watched like even the film or heard a reference of him. Only like early to mid 40s, so he definitely should know. And eventually went, oh no, it's a cartoon, isn't it? I went, oh, if you like, yeah, but okay, yeah. So if you know that, Hades. Fuck all. He looked at me like I had 10 heads. Cerberus. Well, he only has 3. Anyway. So, yeah, as I said, people know bits and bobs, but they're like different stories. Like, oh, I didn't know that. That's how I make friends. I tell them about it. That's a joke. I don't have friends, excuse me. Oh, that didn't go down well. Anyway, so, how about we start off with a bit of Greek, like the Greek. Where should we start? Where should we begin? Let's start at the beginning. In the beginning, there was nothing. That seems to be the common theme with a lot of mythologies. There was fuck all. They've been obviously called different names, like the empty mouth. Translated that, of course, because that sounds shit in English. The gaping maw of emptiness. The land of oblivion. The empty gate, things like that. At the beginning, there were the primordials. Now, if that is not a name to be called, fucking hell, I'm a god. Well, fuck you, I'm a primordial. God, the power that suggests. It's the big, giant, unbelievably huge beings. Each of a, you could say, different aspect. And there was constant battle, warfare, and their blood and bodies formed the universe and the earth. Say, for example, I remember seeing a video, and I could take this as quite a good example. Let's say if one was struck down, fist through the face, and they fell their body and subsequent shockwave could form mountains, earth, the entire earth. Blood formed rivers, oceans, things like that. So they're pretty big. So this kind of created the earth and the world. And from that, everything subsequent came from it. The gods, the titans, we'll get onto them. Different beings of power and things like that. The raw thing. Also, another thing, I love this sense of quite a lot of mythologies follow this strain. In the very beginning, there was nothing but raw power. Everything was near omnipotent, omniscience, everything power in its purest form. Like you blink and mountains would turn to dust, type of thing. And through the passage of time, power wanes. It becomes weaker and diluted. I really, really like that idea, because it can kind of quite happily bring us to modern day, where there is no magic, there's nothing, because life's quite dull. But no, you can almost, but like sort of nowadays, you can almost sense like little drips of what could have been. Obviously, I'm not saying these things are real, but to imagine they're real is so much more fun than to believe they're not. So yeah, you can like sort of, people can sense it, can't they? In a sense. I got it. Going forward, and you enter like a clearing, and you get like a sense of, ooh, this place is weird, I've got a funky feeling. But then people can quickly tell, oh, the ghost's here, and then it becomes a bit silly. Yes, but the dilution of power. J.R. Tolkien, the best writer ever, writer of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, he did exactly the same with his kind of, you could almost call it mythology. With his, what's the word? For like a group of gods. The pantheon! Got it! The pantheon. Start out, pure power, dilute until modern day. And then there's little bits there. He had that idea that the magic and type of thing was slowly draining from the world. Nothing to do, but it just happens. So it dilutes till there's nothing. And I find it quite harrowing. It's almost sad, isn't it? To think about, if you imagine this is completely and utterly fact, that what could have been, what once was, just even have a shred of something like that would be absolutely astounding, wouldn't it? But oh well. Hang on. Ooh. So yeah, sorry, got off track. The primordials, and from that were bred titans. From their bloodlust and carnage, titans were formed. And titans, I want to try and describe titans. They are themselves exceptionally large beings of power, and themselves take different aspects. Power always seems to take aspects, doesn't it? When you talk about gods, there's the god of, say, the god of thunder, god of earth, god of water, god of death, god of the harvest, things like that. We'll go on to that later. But the titans took a similar form. And a very, very influential titan in the Greek mythos was Kronos. I hesitate to call him the king of the titans, or the lord, or the ruler, whatever. I believe he was extraordinarily high up. Let's say if there was a hierarchy of sorts. This is some pyramid scheme bullshit! No, I believe he was the ruler of the titans. Anyway. And from him was born children. Because he had a bit with someone, and babies popped out. He was then, I'm really just skimming over this because we've got a lot of mythoses to carry on with. A lot of mythology, so I'm just going to skim over them. If I get anything wrong, don't judge me. This is literally going off the top of my head. I've not researched it, so I'm just going off my knowledge. And names will escape me, I apologise. and from him was born many, 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 many children. He was then told a prophecy that one of his sons would kill him, would cast him down from his rule and take his place as the Lord, as it were. And so, as you do, he ate all of his children, ate them all, bar one, because his wife, obviously, them being her children too, and she bore them, she wasn't very happy on the idea that he was going to have a midnight snack on Kiddywinks, so she disguised one as a rock. And so he missed it. He didn't see it, he just thought it was a rock, so he didn't eat it. And then she spirited him away. And so Kronos thought, oh, I've dodged it, I've dodged that bullet. Everything's fine, I'm going to rule forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Until years later, when dear little Pebble had grown up, he returned to frighten the shit out of his dad and go, fucking hell, I thought I ate them all. I was a rock. He never saw me. I'm sure it was a bit more poetical than that, my apologies. And so the prophecy had come true. A son had returned and cast his father down. That son was none other than Zeus, god of thunder, ruler of Olympus. I know! It's almost like they thought this out. So yes, Zeus is son of Kronos. Wow, didn't see that coming. What a twist. So as he bumped off Daddy for a bit. Well, no, actually, he was a being of such power, was Kronos, because he was descended from the primordials themselves. He couldn't really be killed by him, but he could kind of imprison him. So he cast him down to Tartarus, which is kind of hell. Well, it is hell, it says. Yes, the pits, the darkest and lowest pit of Tartarus, where he somewhat subdued his power and kept him locked there until time immemorial, or time that he escapes. Ooh, I believe there's another prophecy about that. Oh, he'll fucking get out, don't you worry. There's no one saying, no, he's fine. He'll turn to rock and disappear. Oh, by the way, I'm drinking Earl Grey. It's the only tea that can be drunk nicely. It goes down a treat. Always reminds me of spring. I don't know why. But yes, and from that capturing of Kronos, the other Titans fucking proper pissed off. Oh no, I forgot to say. What happened when he returned? He poisoned Kronos. Did Zeus. Before the big casting down, because I don't think he could do it alone. So what happened was he gave him poison, so Kronos threw up. That's throwing up, if you didn't know. And when he threw up, the children that he ate came out, all grown up. And they were kind of fine. I don't fucking get how that works, but there you are. And out pops Poseidon. And my favourite of the Greek gods, Hades. Ruler of the underworld, keeper of Tartarus, lord of the river Styx. Got a lot of titles. And I believe other such gods, but they were the main three. They're all brothers, aren't they? So, as a thruple, or how many there were, I don't know how many were thrown up. It was either a lot or them three. They cast him down to Tartarus, chained him up. You're good. So from that sparked another influential part of the Greek mythos was the war between the Titans and the gods. Titans. I can remember one other Titan named Gaia, which is kind of Mother Earth. She's depicted as being quite tree-looking, or rocky. Other such consequence ones formed of... Oh no! What's that one? There's another Titan I know. He keeps Labyrinthium on his back. The big labyrinth that Pandora's box was kept in. Ah, oh, bollocks, what was his name? He's another big one. Oh, fuck. I forget his name. He's one. So the war between the gods and the Titans ensues. It's a huge, bloody war that spans quite a long time. And eventually, the gods win, and they take over Mount Olympus. And the Titans are either thought to be dead or scattered. They've fucked off. They're hiding because they can't do it. Excuse me. And during that time, I believe Zeus calls on quite a few nasty little things to, like, help him win the war. Like a few little sneaky little parlour tricks, such wit. But the gods are of immense power anyway, so, you know, it was kind of somewhat even. But yes, that's kind of the only things that happen first. And after that, branches of little stories, little other adventures had. Excuse me. I give a sneak peek to one. Pandora. It's a lovely jewellery chain. I don't like them. Good idea for a shop, though. I'm getting off topic again. Yes, so Zeus becomes king, lord of Mount Olympus. God of thunder, air. His symbol is an eagle, I believe. Which seems like power. Somewhat knowledge. Well, kind of more power. But yes, he was known to be very power-hungry and kind of rapey. He had it off during his reign. He was known to disguise himself, sneak into mortal women's chambers, disguise himself as someone that they either know or their husband, something like that, and impregnate them. Naughty little monkey. And from there you get, like, Hercules, I believe is one story of that. Perseus, definitely. So, yes, he was quite naughty chap, was old Zeus. He was said to be paranoid as well. Not paranoid, infested? No. So, he became very power-hungry. Kind of. A lot of gods seem to follow that thing now I think about it. Odin is another one that became quite power-hungry and paranoid and wanted more knowledge, more things to... Anyway, we're sneaking into Norse. I'm naughty. But yes, another story I've always enjoyed coming off... No, I'll mention the gods first. It's Zeus, then it's Poseidon, a name that incites power, I think. It's very nice to say Poseidon. Say it with me now. God of the oceans, the sea, and creatures, things like that. Like a really good Aquaman. Because Aquaman's not good, he's shit. I don't care what you say. Yes, and as I said, my favourite, Hades. Oh, he's fucking brilliant. He's god of the dead, god of the underworld. He spirits souls from this realm to the other through the river Styx. He has a charming little pet called Cerberus, that three-headed dog. You might recognise it off Harry Potter. Cool Fluffy! Yes, he's always been known to be quite... He's the schemer. He doesn't like Zeus, his brother, being in power. He thinks he's more deserving of it. As is every kind of villain god. Loki is another one. He was all the one scheming. He doesn't like it. Doesn't like his brother. All the rest kind of content to live and let live. There are other gods. Aphrodite, the god of love. I always forget the god of knowledge. Convenient. Not a hint of irony. Which always depicted to have an owl on her shoulder, which they thought was the god, the bird of knowledge and wisdom and things like that. You've also got Ares, the god of war. Hephaestus, the kind of crafting god. And interesting enough, he was, I believe this is how the story goes. He wanted to create, he wanted to build. So out of, I believe, clay, he formed a little human. First of our kind. This is how we came into being, says Greek mythology. Dear Hephaestus. So he formed a little thing, and he banged on it with a hammer cast the embers up in the little forge. Oh, pff, we're alive. Made a few of us so we could play around. And we subsequently we grew in number. Zeus kind of didn't know until it was like, what the fucking hell's that? Weird little thing moving around. Oh, God, kill it. He wasn't kind of struck with us first of all, but then he saw that we had knowledge of our own. We could build, we could create. And best of all, we could pray. We could give the gods homage and sacrifices, things like that. He saw use. Still wasn't overly struck with us. We were, by no stretch of the imagination, an equal to a god. Fuck no, we were kind of scum, wormy type things. We have our uses, but you know, if tens of thousands die, I'm not going to whinge. There's a very interesting story about that, but because Hephaestus obviously grew to love his creation, and there was something to do with food. Yes, an offering to the humans and an offering to the gods. To trick, because Zeus obviously wanted the best of everything. He wanted the best cuts of meat. He wanted the best wine. He wanted the best of everything. He's the king of gods. I mean, come on. If that doesn't inflate your head, I don't know what will. So he wanted the best. So there were 2 bags set aside. One was filled with very nice cuts of meat, possibly a pork chop, and a sirloin, things like that. And on the very top was like the very, very top. The only bit that you could see poking out of the bag were guts, offal, horrible things. The majority of it was gorgeous cuts of meat, but the very top was not the very nice ones. Heart, maybe a tongue, things like that. And the other bag was the complete opposite, filled with all the shit, and at the very top were the very, very nice cuts of meat. So he presented these to Hephaestus. He presented this to Zeus. And obviously Zeus said, okay, I'll have the one that I can see looks nicest. But he doesn't know, obviously. There's a lot of shit in it. So he picks that one. And he's like, okay, give the shit to the humans. So he gives that one to the humans. So obviously they get the best. They get the nicest. They get things like that. So he tricked Zeus. There's a lot of trickery in pantheons, isn't there? Quite like it. It's like, woohoo, trickery. But lo and behold, he finds out. Does Zeus, and he's pissed. He's pissed. Obviously, because when he opens the bag, takes off the sirloin, and there's just there's awful things there. He's like, oh, I've been swindled. So by this point, he gets absolutely raging with Hephaestus, and he imprisons him for quite a while, I believe. And he makes him suffer. Is Hephaestus... No. Is it that one? I think it might be, you know. Okay, don't quote me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, this might be someone else. But it's definitely a story, so either way, it's going to be fun. As punishment, Zeus tied Hephaestus to a rock high up in the mountain so he could see his creation below him and not do anything to help or to aid or to do anything. And each morn a bird, I believe it was a vulture, not vulture, it was a big bird, big fucking bird, came to him each morning and ate his liver. And then when the bird departed, and he was alive for all this, he can't die, he's a god, he's alive for all this, and it bloody hurts. So obviously he's ripping into his flesh, eating his liver and then pissing off, and each night it healed and grew back. The liver grew back. And every morning it would happen again, so this was a constant torture. Oddly enough, that's mimicked. When you talk about it, you can see a lot of mimicry in Tolkien's work. It's fascinating, because there was it's exactly the same. There was an elf going on to this, because I like Lord of the Rings. Screw me. Screw me? No, that's not right. Screw it. Oh, bit of blue for it, dads. Bit of blue. There was an elf that defied the Lord Melkor. If you don't know who he is, he's kind of Sauron's boss. There was a bigger one before Sauron, that's kind of him. he defied Melkor, so he shoved him at the top of a mountain, tied him, and made him look down on his family forever and ever and ever and ever. And he couldn't do anything to help them, kind of thing. So it's quite mimicry. It's very interesting. But yeah, why fix it if it ain't broke? Excuse me. It's kind of gone cold now. It's quite a big mug. I should have drank it before quicker. Yeah, so should I move on to a different mythology? There's so much I could say about Greek mythology and the different stories. Pandora's a very good one. Medusa is another good one. The labours of Hercules. Oh, that's a cracker. That's a cracker. I do want to mention one because Stephen Fry mentioned it. How we can, and it was fascinating because we get loads of our words from the past. I'm not explaining this well. I'll just give you an example. For example, there was a titan called Atlas. Can you see where this is going? There was a titan called Atlas, and after the war, because the Titans had lost, he had been imprisoned and tasked to hold up the sky indefinitely, to hold up the world. And subsequently, through the years, I don't know how many changes have gone through, that's where we get, our representation of the world, which we call an atlas, because it was a Titan named Atlas. I find that very, very interesting indeed, that we can still harken back to such things. Leave the little bit of magic in the world. Another word, what a Herculean task. That's another word that we can use from the god, demigod, Hercules. But yes, I do kind of want to keep talking about Greek, but I feel I'm already half an hour through. Well, okay. How about if you like this, me talking about this, let me know and I'll do another one. I'll go in a bit more depth. How about that? If you don't let me know, I won't. Or maybe I will if I get bored. Anyway. So let's move on to... what one now? How about I'll skim through Egyptian ones. I'll just tell you some Egyptian gods, because I find them very, very, very interesting. And I'll move on to Norse. How about that? I like Norse. I know a bit about Norse. In fact, I look like a Viking, so I kind of have to. Little known fact, Thor wasn't blonde, he was actually ginger. Ha ha! So I look more like Thor than that prick playing him on Marvel. Is it Hemsworth? No, is it? I don't know. As you can tell, names, fucking hell, mine's like a sieve when it comes to names. So Egyptian gods. Not a lot is known about, I mean, in the public, of course. There's a lot known about Egyptian mythology. Oh, fucking hell. But to name some of the gods, the god of... Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, sorry. Yep, okay. Sorry, I had a notification. It was dinging. The god, there are absolutely fuck tons of gods. So in the Egyptian pantheon, there are in any pantheon, there are quite a few, because they can go down to even menial tasks. You get like the very height, like Amun-Ra, he's like the big one, the creator god, let's say, god of the sun, and they found the sun very important. Living in Egypt, you kind of have to. It's that or sand. But it goes down to extraordinarily menial, because like, Babi, the god Babi. God of baboons. That's it. That's it. Why do you need a god for that? Wouldn't it be far more prevalent to just call the god of animals and just have them all? But no, there's another one. Bess, I think it is. The dwarfen god of entertainment. Well, that was a shit show. You don't know this. But I have just... This is like the next day. This is a different recording. Terribly sorry. I was editing it back, and half of it didn't fucking record. I'm fuming. absolutely fuming. I don't remember what I said, but I can tell you now it was a fucking gem. Absolute glory pouring out of my mouth. Which means I'm going to have to do it again. That's fine. That's fine. Oh, I'm pissed. Can you tell? Anyway. So, I'm going to have to try and remember where I was at. I remember me talking about a monkey. Was it a monkey? No, it was a dwarf. Entertainment. The dwarven god of entertainment, I think, was the Egyptian. Excuse me. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, everything's ruined now. The whole pace of it. Ah, well. We'll just pretend like it didn't happen. I don't even have a drink with me. I don't have tea. This is how dire it is. I have nothing to slurp and sip. You thought Brexit was bad. This is the shit show of Britain. Everyone should be talking about it. Anyway, let's try and seamlessly sink back into this and have a fucking job. Right, so where were we? So, as the Egyptian pantheon is concerned, there are a few notable ones, with a few of quite intrigue and such. One, the kind of main one, and do forgive me if I've repeated this, I've only listened to a little bit of what I did before, so if I repeat myself, just enjoy the tones, the dulcet tones. Yes, okay, few a few Egyptian gods of mention is Amun-Ra, which a few people don't know was actually two separate gods, but in later dynasties of the Egyptian timeline, whatever, they split. No, they formed together. See what happens? Just, derailed. Yes, before they were separate gods. Amun, the creator god, he's like the big daddy type of thing. And Ra, well, Ra means the sun, so he's the son of, the god's son god. So they smash them together to form Amun-Ra. And then you've got Amunet, which is pretty much the main thing. She was alongside Amun when they were creating all of the world, Egypt. And so they thought, oh, do you know what? Let's just shove an Inet on there, Amunet, just to make it a bit more feminine, I suppose. She's also god. Well, she's mostly known for being his wife, and also creating a few bits herself. My favourite god, because I always seem to enjoy the darker gods, the gods that we kind of deem more darker, but like Hades, but he's synonymous with evil in a sense, isn't he? This one not so much, but Anubis. I'm sure you've all heard of him, the head of a jackal. He's the god of the dead. He oversees funerals, he oversees embalming, which is a fabulous course of events. I'm sure you know what it is. It's pretty much mummification, like the bit before. What they do, I'm going to tell you in gory detail. Slice you open, take out all of your organs, put them in little jars, and each jar is representative of a different god. You've got Horus, you've got Amun-Ra, you've got Anubis, obviously, because he's the thing of it. I believe Sobek, we'll get onto in a minute, a head of a crocodile. He's very Nile-esque. Sobek. I like that name. Yes. What was I saying? Yeah. Take all of your organs, put them in these jars, kind of offering them to these gods. Have you ever noticed that gods demand a lot of offerings? Greedy bastards. And they rummage out your insides with various salts, spices and wines type of thing. They pickle you, in a sense, but like a dry pickle. After that, they make a little incision. Oh, sorry, not the microphone again. A little incision in your nostril. And then they do a little spike there with like a hook on the end. They find your way around till they reach the brain. Then they scramble it round, make it nice and mushy. And they'll rip it out through your nostril. Oh, that must have been a bloody sight, that, mustn't it? And then they shove that in the jar. Everything's in the jar. There are obviously more intricate, more details, what they do with the spirit organs. They do different things. But as I said, this is just going to kind of cover basics of these type of things. Because as I said, I have a deeper knowledge, but there's no time. There's no time. Yes, as I'm sure you're aware, the Nile was quite a prevalent being in the lives of the Egyptians, because it allowed them for trade, transport, it fed them, so it was kind of a beautiful thing. It was kind of, if that left, you could argue the Egyptian culture itself would have never been near as big as it was. You never know, maybe they just went south and found a bigger river. So Happy is one certain god of the Nile. They have quite a few that are linked to the Nile, Sobek being one of them. What other gods? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Horus, he's a good one. The head of a falcon, as I'm sure you've seen it. If not, he's in films and all these things. Head of a falcon. He is the god of war, the god of the skies, and the god of falcons in general, because they need a god for some reason. Also, there are a few gods linked with war. There are gods specifically for like the embodiment of war. Then there are gods for the act of war, god of killing. It's kind of a lot of. I think it's a bit for just so many gods, like really little ones that have got really little jobs. So the gods on the downy hairs of your ass, or the god of granite. I believe that is one. Or the god of stone. Something like that. Not to be confused with like god of carpentry and building and crafting. That's one separate one. Then there's like god of the hammer. It just seems to get a bit silly, doesn't it? Then again, you can never have too many. I'm going to say one I've never heard of. Just seen it. Heket. Do you know what that's god of? It's goddess of frogs. Fucking frogs. I mean, come on. Fucking hell. It's just a bit much, isn't it? One god I specifically like is Isis, the goddess of magic and protecting and healing, but mostly they focus more on like magic. And also I believe she was called upon during marriages as things to bless the marriage with your sacred magic. But yes, I've always been a fan of magic. And sorcery, spells, witchcraft. Whoa, it's all good stuff. Osiris. Now, yes, as I said before, I got off point a bit. Anubis. While he is god of afterlife and kind of death, and like ferrying and embalming and all that, he's not evil. Which you could quite easily link, because we view like death and someone who, let's say, what's his job? His job would be evil. Not necessarily linking. It's more like, think of the angel of death. Not evil, but not necessarily good. Just completely neutral down the middle. It has to be done. Type of thing. For example, what's that other god? Osiris. That's another one. Now that's a god of the underworld and the god of the afterlife. I believe that is they were quite into, the Egyptians, into marriage. So marry your brother and your sister. And that bled into the gods. So I believe Osiris was brother? Or was it cousin? No, I think it was brother. Brother and husband of Isis, the god of magic. And supposedly, Osiris did not get along with Set. Set is the god of chaos and change, which they kind of linked it with the deserts. That was the representation. Because obviously the deserts and the like sandstorms, constantly shifting, constantly changing. This is anarchy, it's chaos, there's no stability, no things like that. So yeah, they apparently didn't get on. Also his brother. And oddly enough, father of Anubis. So Anubis followed in his daddy's footsteps. But yes. Right. I think... No, okay. There's one more god I'd like to mention, because I really like him. And that is Thoth. Thoth. It sounds like a lisp. Thoth. That is the god of knowledge, much like the Greek one. Each god seems to... All of the mythology seem to mirror each other in certain aspects. There's always like the strong one at the very top. Like Amun-Ra, Zeus, there's a god of knowledge, there's a god of death, the god of the sea. Excuse me, god of the Nile. Kind of link up. Yes, but go back to Thoth. The only way I remember that name is because it reminds me of a sloth. And I used to think that's what his creature embodiment was. No, it's just 'cause his name's Thoth, and I'm thick. So he's the god of knowledge, he's the god of... Think of anything that you would associate with knowledge. Scribes, scrolls. He was also said to invent writing, so hieroglyphs, things like that. The god of secrets, things like that. He was said to keep an absolutely gigantic and glorious library. Oh, I'd love to have a visit. With all the knowledge, things like that. I think, as I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of gods. I kind of want to get onto Norse, because I know a lot more about that, and I love it! I love me a bit of Norse. So, we go on to the Norse pantheon. I'm trying to do Joanna Lumley. Did it work? Follow me on the Silk Road! No. Me and her need to do a programme together. We get on like flies on shit. Oh, don't you love a bit of Lumley? I'm getting off topic. That'll be for the next episode. Right, okay. Norse. I'm sure you all are aware of some Norse things. Just watch a Marvel film. It's full of them. I think Stan Lee, rest in peace, he's quite fond of the Norse pantheon as well. Doesn't really goes into a bit of Greek, I think, but he'd like Norse have Thor, Loki, Odin, Hela. You see them in all the films. And he took quite a lot of the information he took was very correct. Also, a lot of information is very correct. If you really like this type of thing, a game, I know, God of War, the new one, that puts you in the Norse thing. And it is absolutely brilliant. Every bit of information, well, the majority they get fucking bang on! And it's brilliant. Not only do you get to beat the shit out of gods, you get to learn a bit as well, children. So, yes. So, in the beginning of this mythos, there was nothing apart from a few elements. Like the strong elements. Fire, ice. And they met. And from that, they started to form things. They started to form realms. The first realm, Muspelheim. Now, these are very hard to pronounce. Because it almost sounds like you have to cough. Muspelheim. Yes. Muspelheim, the god of what we, in kind of westerny thinking, would associate with a very hell-ish landscape. So there's fire, sulfur, volcanic, rocks everywhere, no greenery, completely barren, and very, very hot. Of a few characters that come in, when the realms are obviously created, people start to come in. And these people are the giants. The very first giant, the name escapes me, my apologies. He kind of creates everything, in a sense. Every living being. He is Odin's father. He's also fathers of many, many giants. One giant who lives solely in Muspelheim is Surt, or Surtur. I think it's Surt. He is a fire giant. The giant of fire, you could say. He resides in this desolate land constantly from the beginning of time to its very end. Ragnarok. Oh, we'll get onto that, don't you worry, Deirdre. He is constantly honing his blade, as it were. He is said to have a massive sword, like a great sword. And this is solely to break down the walls of Asgard, come Ragnarok. That's his only purpose. I find that interesting. He does nothing from his very creation to his very end. He does nothing apart from that. Absolutely nothing. He just stays there, sharpening his blade, for the sole purpose to knock down the walls. of Ragnarok. It is very interesting because everyone in the pantheon, in the mythology, seems to know that it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. They play very fast and loose with time. It's quite wobbly. It's interesting because they can use it as it's like tangible. It's almost can be played with. I find that fascinating and no amount confusing. So he knows he's going to have to do this, and he knows that as a result he'll die. He'll be killed at Ragnarok, and yet he still continues to do it. Why? You'd think if you knew, you'd change. You'd change an aspect. Or would that kind of just be playing into, you were always meant to try and change it, but it would never work? I don't know. There are also accounts that they kind of didn't know. They had like spots. They knew kind of what was going to happen, but not the whole picture. It is very confusing. Yeah, so. And when I use the word giant, that is not necessarily to say that these were giants, as it were, like skyscraper-esque tall beings. Not necessarily at all. The giants were a people, as we would say. For example, the Aesir, they're all gods, like Odin, Thor. They're Aesir. They're a type of people, the giants. While they could be giant, very tall, they weren't necessarily. They could have been normal-sized. I know, kind of a bummer, isn't it? You think giant, oh no, he's only like 5 foot tall. Okay. But some giants were giant. For example, the world serpent was a giant. As was Fenrir? I think it's Fenrir. I always get the wolves confused. Oh, no, I think it is Fenrir. Giant wolf. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes. The world starts creating, and Yggdrasil is formed. The world tree. It's called Yggdrasil. It's very fucking difficult to spell, I tell you. And from there, different realms start to be formed. The representation of it is it's a big fuck-off tree. Like to the point where it's inconceivable. We can't conceive how big this is. It's so big. Because our realm is merely like on a branch. I believe there are 9. I think there are 9. I'm squinting my eyes in concentration. 9. Yeah, there are 9 realms in this mythology. I don't know if I know all of them. I'll have a go. There's Muspelheim. There's Asgard, which is the home of the gods. Odin built a lovely little castle. Not castle. He built kind of Valhalla. And that's where we put it. Put it in Asgard. There is Alfheim, which is where the elves live. I think it's the good elves. It's nice elves. The light elves, I think they were called. So Alfheim, that's 3. There was, my favourite, Helheim, which is hell. They refer to it as hell. Which I find very interesting because we called it hell in the Christian thing. You try and stay away from calling it mythology, don't you? It's Christian faith, because people still believe in it. But hey ho, we call it hell. The only difference is we spell it with one more L. We thought it'd be really different to spell it with an extra L. But that's in complete contrast to what we would think hell is. Muspelheim, as I said, is a very good, interesting comparison because it's pretty much exactly the same. Hell, or Helheim, was, in their version, ice cold. Like, completely frozen over. Like you said if a living person was said to step there, gone, fucking, you're an ice cube. Or your very soul would be frozen. That was a big deal. Yes, but that is the land of the dead. Also linked with Tartarus, you could say. There was Jotunheim. Jotunheim. I'll try and pronounce them correctly. That was the land of the giants. Yeah, that's where most of them resided. Or they tried to. I believe in one of the stories, I think they were kind of scattered throughout. Hang on, let me think. Yes, no, okay. I'm just going to kind of snippet of a story, and that'll explain the creation of Jotunheim. There was a giant, there was a battle, and when he was slain, his blood was so much, it was like a torrent, a tsunami of blood, as it were, and it drowned, I think, all of the giants. I think it was all of the giants, apart from 2 who built a ship. So they hopped on a boat, and the blood wave, I don't know, it's a lot of blood, swept them away to an unknown land. And then when they got off, the 2 little giants started to breed and make more and more and more, and they eventually colonized it and called it Jotunheim. Jotun means giant. Jotun means giant, so they were called the Jotnar, so the giant people. So they kind of just got off and went, oh, this is nice, what are we going to call it? Oh, Jotunheim. There was Niflheim. This was a land. This was kind of a bit similar to Helheim. It wasn't a nice place. It was said to be filled with poisonous mist and icy cold as well. And I think that is. Now I can't be sure because I believed Hela, that's the goddess of death, and Odin's daughter. Or is it Odin's daughter? That might be shown in the film. Oh, fuck. I believe it is Odin's daughter in real life. In real life. Maybe pop round for a cup of tea. She was said to either reside in Helheim or Niflheim. Maybe she lived in one and had a holiday home in the other. I don't know. She's a bit of a diva. There was Vanaheim. Now it's another. In a sense, not gods lived there as well, but if you think of the Aesir, which is like Odin and Thor, these were kind of like them, but a little lesser. They were more magically powerful, other than godly powerful, if that makes sense. The Vanaheim, they used a lot of like ancient magics, things like that, and they often had wars with the Aesir. So it was the Vanir and the Aesir. There's so many fucking names, I know. It could be a bit confusing. Also, the best realm of all, Midgard. Which is where we live. Which is Earth. It's Earth. The realm of mankind. And that was formed in a very, very brutal way. What it was, you remember me talking about the god, the giant rather, the big one that started all of it out. He didn't get on. His son didn't get on with him. His son was Odin. Odin was a bit of a dick, let's be honest. So he slew his father, and from his body he dragged it onto the Yggdrasil tree, which is the world tree, and he threw it in a corner, and from his body he made the mountains. His teeth were the rocks, his blood were the rivers, his brains he threw up in the sky to make clouds. So yeah. The Earth is a giant, a dead one. It's apparently very rocky. And as I said, when you can interchange giant with someone who's normal sized, or someone who's so inconceivably big that their body makes a world. So each of these things were kind of like a world. But it is also there are accounts of them mirroring each other. In a sense, so they're all on one, like the trunk kind of say, and it's like an elevator-esque thing. I'm trying to explain this well, I'm failing miserably. How long have I... Oh, I've been talking for an hour. Oh no. I kind of want to don't go above an hour. What should I do? Tell me, what did I do? I'll carry on for a minute, you can last another 10 minutes, can't you? It's Yggdrasil, not Yggdrasil. No, Yggdrasil is the tree. Each world's kind of synonymous with the next. And to get to each one, you use something called a bifrost. which you get to via a rainbow bridge. I know, it sounds so fucking weird, doesn't it? A rainbow bridge. Oh, fucking hell, God. Let's get out the balloons. Bit of cake, yeah, fucking party. But the Bifrost was almost of a portal, a doorway to the other realms. And it was used quite a lot by the gods to get to different places. Wars were ensued with them. Sometimes people of the realms tried to cut it off so no one could get in their realms. There's so many stories. But I want to end on Ragnarok, because that is a fucking story and a half, that. What is said to happen at Ragnarok? The very start of it, what's said to roll it off? And everyone kind of knows it in the pantheon, but it still happens. I think they're either really, really stupid, or they just didn't know. But I think they did. What happens is there is a chap called Balder, and his mother, Frigg, who is Odin's wife. So it's so Balder's Odin's son. His mother. His mother is terrified of him dying. She doesn't want to see his son die. So she goes to everything in creation, absolutely everything. Down to like wood, rocks, animals, steel, iron, things like that. And makes it swear a fealty, swear an oath, to not harm Balder. Because she didn't want him to die. And they all go, oh, alright, go on. And so they go back to Asgard. And all the gods are kind of, I don't believe this. So they start throwing spears at him, shooting arrows, stabbing him, clubbing him. And it's all just bouncing off him. It doesn't hurt him. And he's laughing. They're all having a jolly good time. Kind of a celebratory, I can't die, woo, pass a horn of mead. That's how they did it, isn't it? Well, it is now. And so Loki, he's also there, and he's pissed. He doesn't like it. He's very jealous, is Loki. And so he wants to try and find out if there is anything. So he disguises himself as a woman. He does a lot of disguising, a lot. He disguises himself as a woman and goes to talk to Frigg. And he's like, oh, fucking hell, your son's getting on well, isn't he? She's like, oh, yeah, lovely, nothing can harm him. And she's like, oh, nothing. Just, well, I didn't ask the mistletoe, because it's fucking mistletoe. What can that do? It's a piece of piss. It's nothing. I didn't ask him. Loki's like, oh, and he walks away. And he goes and finds some mistletoe and makes an arrow out of its wood. And so while everyone's throwing things at him, shooting him with arrows, Loki goes, still disguised as a woman. Oh, well, everyone's had their go, let me have my go. Shoots the arrow at Balder, he dies. Ha ha ha. Almost like an Achilles heel type thing. Oh, mirroring beautifully, kind of. There are aspects. Anyway, Balder dies. And from that starts Ragnarok. From this is said to spark Fimble Winter. As soon as Balder dies, Fimble Winter occurs. What Fimble Winter is, I know it sounds silly, doesn't it? Fimble Winter. Doesn't sound intimidating at all. Ragnarok. Now there's something. Fimble Winter is just a lot of years of winter. Many, many years of winter. Well, not many. 4. The word four's in my head. I think it's 4. 4 years of winter, and from that, more events occur. What happens is there are 2 wolves. Oh, I want to tell that story as well. Maybe another time. There are 2 wolves, basically, chasing the moon and the sun. That's why they keep going round and round and round and round. And eventually the sun and moon will be caught and devoured by these wolves. And there's another omen of Ragnarok. I think maybe that's what they used for, like, eclipse. Oh, it's an eclipse. The wolves have finally caught their quarry. Could be. From that battle, at the end, it's just a huge fuck-off battle, basically, between the Jotunheim, the giants, and the gods, the Aesir, Odin, Thor, Magni, Modi, I can't think of any off the top of my head. So they have a huge battle. And what happens is Thor is killed by the world serpent. A serpent. The world serpent is also a giant. The giant is said to be so huge he can curl his body around the earth and bite his tail at the end. So he wraps himself around. The serpent's poison kills Thor, but not before Thor hits the serpent so hard. It's weird. It both in turn kills him and sends him back to the past to relive it. Fucking I know. What? Odin is then devoured by Fenrir, who's then killed by... Fenrir is killed by another god. I forget who. And the battle is supposed to be so catastrophic that everything's left barren, everything's been destroyed. There are only a few... The gods, I think, are all dead, so are all the giants. Asgard's been destroyed. There are only a few humans left, I think, at the very end. Very sparse few humans left. And this is their doomsday thing again. This is like Armageddon. There's a few humans left, and from there colonize, and the humans grow. So, you could argue, Ragnarok's already happened. Because in any Armageddon story, there's always an aftermath. There's always like at the bottom of Pandora's box, a glimmer of hope. And apparently it always tends to be the humans colonize, grow, invent, la 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 la. So you could argue it's already happened, which is a pity shame. I would have liked to have seen that. But yes, I think I've talked long enough for now. I'm still pissed off that my recording didn't record. It better fucking do it now. But yeah, so if you would like me to talk about it more, because I have so much more to say, because I love it. Even if you don't ask, I might do it. Ha ha ha. You have no power here. Yeah, I'd like to do it again. I do enjoy these little talks we have. You're a very good listener. Well, I suppose there's nothing left than to say goodbye, farewell, and I hoped you enjoyed my dulcet tones. Goodbye, my dears.